Good morning, everybody. Like Phil has said many times, I am Michael Garcia. I am the treatment coordinator for the Council of Compulsive Gambling of New Jersey. And I'm excited to have you join this webinar. I think it's an important webinar to have the conversation, how to have the conversation of problem gambling. And I hope that I hope a couple things. I hope that you find the information useful. I hope that you can share with me any feedback that you might have. And I hope that you feel empowered at the end of this webinar to continue this message, to move it forward. So we are here for about an hour. So I'll run through the webinar, through the slides, and then I'll open up a brief Q&A at the end. So as Phil said, if you have any questions and you want to put them down in the chat box, and then Phil will keep track of them for me, and then we'll run through them at the end. Okay, so the way that we're going to go is I have slides with some information that we're going to go through. I have an objective that I hope to achieve today. I'm going to share some personal information just to give a little bit more of an overview understanding of the importance of having a conversation, and specifically tailor it to gambling and see how we move forward. So, and I'm also going to provide some background information about the council for those of you who might be new joining this call, and hopefully you'll be able to utilize us as a resource. Who is 800 Gambler? Number one. So the Council of Compulsive Gambling of New Jersey is a private nonprofit that's dedicated to helping and providing resources to problem gamblers and their families. Now, we operate on a couple different levels. So we have prevention specialists who go out into the community, though, I mean, these guys will go anywhere, wherever the message is needed. And they'll share a message about problem gambling, about things to look forward to. They'll present at schools, any institutions, and as well as community events. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is what I take hold of, which is the treatment aspect. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper. But we do operate the 800 Gambler helpline. And this is a free and confidential helpline. It's there for individuals who may need it. It's available 24 hours a day. No matter when you call, somebody will pick up, and somebody is available to point you in the right direction, to give you insight into where to get help, how to get help, whether it's giving you lists to GA meetings or providing you and getting you in touch with a provider. So that's what we're here to do. That's what we hope to do, as well as educate and inform. And it's exciting, and we ask that you utilize this as a resource. Now, I do want to make an important distinction. The council, we are not for or against gambling, right? We have no formal opinion when it comes to it. Our purpose is just to serve as a messenger and for the problem gambler who may need us. Opportunities with the council. So we have a few. These are mainly what I oversee. So the first thing is a 30-hour course. The 30-hour course is a self-paced virtual course that teaches about the intro to gambling, intro to understanding problem gambling, as well as any intro level for clinicians who are looking to get certification for problem gambling. It's free for all NJ residents, so it's something that I hope that you utilize. And if you have interest in taking this course, you can reach out to me at the end of this call and or at the end of this webinar, and we can access or I can get you access to the course. The other side is provider expansion, and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into this in the course and the reason why the council is committed to finding new providers. But we are constantly looking for new providers who are going to be able to fight against problem gambling, who are going to be able to provide the sources and have the proper training to be able to educate and help those who need us. Now, I know on this call I have a few of our providers with us. So to you guys, I just want to say thank you for joining. And I look forward to building up our provider base and getting more resources out there. Okay, so what is the objective today? So it's pretty simple. First thing I want to do is I want to target problem areas. What are the problem areas in gambling? What are we seeing? What's on the horizon in terms of what's trending and what's new? I want to address the narrative. So we know that gambling is called the hidden addiction. And I want to address why it's called the hidden addiction. What makes it so difficult to talk about? The next is listen and support. So as I said, at the end of this meeting, I'll have a short Q&A that I hope that we utilize. And more importantly, I hope that you take the information that you learn in this webinar and you move it forward to the next section, to whatever facet in life that you can use it, and share the message and hope. And then finally, we're going to build knowledge from this webinar, build knowledge from you, and continue our ascent up to figuring out how to help the problem gambler. Basically, I'm saying that we're going to talk, and more importantly, we're going to have the conversation. Now, I titled this webinar "Have the Conversation," and it's more of a plea and a statement, because the conversation is not being had. Even in traditional treatment cycles, it's not really discussed as deeply for as much of a problem that we're seeing on the horizon that it's becoming. So I do want to give some tips and pointers. I want to leave this general enough for anybody to be able to pick up and utilize. And I want to, again, empower everybody. That's our awareness month. That's our theme this year. So I want to make sure that we empower everybody to have this conversation on your own, and to be able to just feel confident that you'll be able to provide the right information. So just starting off with some background, what is gambling? So one definition of gambling is anytime you wager on something with the possibility of losing something of value, it's considered gambling. What has value? Some options are here. We have money, time, freedom, relationships, and health. Now, we're accustomed to understanding what money is, right? We know that there's a loss of money, gain of money. That's the attraction. We don't really spend a lot of time talking about the time and freedom and relationships and health. The reason why I brought those up is we have our smartphone. Everybody, typically has a smartphone, and you have, with the way gambling has expanded over the years, you now have access to gamble anywhere where you have internet or anywhere you have that access. And that could be at your dinner table. That could be during work. That could be in a parking lot somewhere. So it really does strain whenever we see the problem gamblers, these other areas of their lives are getting strained. So it's something that we have to remember when we talk about value. It goes a lot deeper than just money. Common types of gambling. So we have the basic ones that we know. We have lottery tickets, casino, sports betting, scratch-offs, and track racing, right? Those are the ones that we're familiar with. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the newer ones, or the more uncommon types of gambling that we're seeing. The number one is e-gaming. E-gaming is exploding right now. The market is getting bigger and bigger by the second. If you're not familiar with e-gaming, I suggest that you look into it or tune into some of our future webinars. That's why I'm not going to go too deep into it, because our other webinars, we're going to focus more on these topics at hand. But e-gaming it's everywhere now. And this is before clearance is being given to authorize within the state and to authorize on the legal market. But underground in your gaming systems, there's lots of e-gaming that's happening, and there's lots of gambling that's associated with that. So that's something that we want to pay attention to. That's a little uncommon. Stock trading. So this one is not newer, right? It's been around for a while, and typically guys like my age and people my age will start to get into stocks. I'm still trying to figure it out, but what I'm trying to do is, or what we see is that stock trading has taken on a new boom. And I want to reference a point that happened a couple of years ago, to where we really saw it kick off in the gambling field, specifically for the younger generation. I think at the height of 2020, I was on Facebook and I saw my cousin's post, my younger cousin. He's 18, or he was 18 at the time. And on his Facebook post, I kept seeing hashtag to the moon, with little rocket ships and all these different things that were out there. And I remember thinking that's weird, because you don't know my cousin, but he's not interested in NASA or anything like that. So I was like, what's that? So I also saw 100 comments relating down, saying to the moon, hashtag, build it up, blow it up, hold strong. And they were all from people in his age group. So I messaged him. I said, hey, what's going on with your post? What's going on? And when I tell you it uncovered Pandora's box in terms of information that he gave me, he sounded like a stock market genius in terms of talking about what's trending and viral right now. The The focus was to get a small stock that was unknown and build it up to a point and inflate it so high where you can make money. And lots of people are making money on this stock, and they're going to ride the wave and they're going to hold strong. And after we had that conversation, he gave me that little bit of info. I looked into it, and it was everywhere. It was on every social media platform. Teenagers were getting tattoos with this specific stock and with the to the moon hashtag. It became a viral sensation. And the tragedy is that, as with most things that go viral, it did work for a little bit, right? Like some people did make money on it, but it ultimately fizzled out. And when it fizzled out, a lot of people lost money. And a lot of teenagers found other backway channels to participate in the stock market or buy in some way, and they lost money, or they lost their parents' money. And then we saw a big decline in how people were regarding the stock market. And that leads us to the next thing that we saw kind of start to spike around the same time, which is cryptocurrencies and NFTs. Now, I don't know, I'll be honest with you, I don't know that much about cryptocurrency. It's not for lack of trying, it's just the definitions, and it keeps expanding. So the gist of it is cryptocurrencies is a way for you to buy and sell online without having to put your regular card information and any identifiers that you have. You can virtually buy things anonymously. You can use it to purchase things that are legal. You can use it to purchase things that are illegal. And it's unregulated for the most part. They're trying to regulate it, but new things are popping up every day. And it's become the go-to obsession of the younger generation that we're starting to see. This next one is very new, and I just want to point one thing out about it. It's called the metaverse. If anybody's ever looked at it, if you take a look at it after this webinar, it's something that's been created by Facebook. It's been in the works for a couple of years, but it only started launching in small increments recently. And with as new as it is, it's a virtual reality universe. It gives you the access to be able to put on a virtual reality headset, such as like the Quest and the Oculus, and live in this virtual world. And the goal or the dream of Facebook is to be able to allow you to work inside of this universe, in this virtual universe. You can date and go on social gatherings, but more importantly, you're going to be able to trade and sell currency or buy and shop with currency that's cryptocurrency. And to just put into perspective how much gambling is inundated in our regular lives, this platform only started rolling out a couple months ago. And one of the first things that they've included inside this platform is a casino. And it's a cryptocurrency casino. So it just shows how much of a hold gambling has on us. Now, just a stat for you to pay attention to: an estimated 92.9 billion is expected just for online e-gaming revenue by 2023. I think that number is a lot lower. I think we're going to see a big spike because experts are predicting that we're within that bubble now, and it's only going to increase more. Okay, so in talking about conversation, it's often difficult to know where to start. How do I start having this type of conversation with those around me? How do I bring in naturally gambling or talking about problem gambling? Well, here's some suggestions for you. So anytime that we're talking about something as tough of a conversation point as gambling, we want you to ask general open-ended questions. Don't be judgmental. Remember that this is a conversation. It's not an interrogation. We're not trying to pressure anybody into speaking with us. We're not trying to get anybody to admit all of their wrongdoings all at once. We want to ask open-ended questions like, how do you feel about all the ads that are going on with gambling? Do you see how many posts are being done about these casinos and these cryptocurrencies and this metaverse? How do you feel about that? And you can also specifically put in, have you ever thought about gambling? Or have you ever participated in gambling? Right? You can ask your teens this, you can ask your friends or your family. It's just a way to kind of get the conversation started, or a way to introduce that topic. Another thing is ask about how they relate to gambling or problem gambling. Do you think that it could ever get out of control, something like gambling? Do you think that, or who do you think makes the most money, the gambler or the platforms that promote gambling? Uh, how many have any of your friends ever talked about gambling? So related to them, again, non-accusatory, not looking for an interrogation, also not looking for any type of truth to be or any expectation of what the conversation is going to turn into. It's just a way to get started. It's a way to present the information so that way they can start knowing that this is a focal point that you're going to start discussing. And then use relatable information. I'm a big fan of keeping things light. Even the darkest conversations that we need to have or the toughest conversations we need to have, it's not that everything's a joke, but make it relatable to you. Talk about how many times you've bought a scratch off ticket. Have you ever lost money at a casino? Share about experience. By sharing experiences, we can learn from each other, and don't be afraid to use humor.
Recording in progress.
I want to take a moment to demonstrate how, I'm hearing a little background. If you're not on mute, please mute yourself. Thank you. I want to take a moment to talk about how dynamic having a conversation could be. And this is something that's happened in my life that I credit very much to my entrance into the field and into me being able to present to you today. So a couple of years ago, before I worked in therapy, before I became a clinician, before any of that, I worked for a small organization where we helped problem kids or high risk teens just get out of their environment. So this program, you were working with your DCP and P kids, you were working with your juvenile justice system kids. And I had this family that I was working with where the grandmother was recently awarded partial custody. And there were 3 boys, and this one day I'd been working with them for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks, and we decided to just play football in the backyard, just throw the ball around, running routes, just doing all these different things that we could do. And the grandmother came out and she offered me water, so I took a break and I was hanging out with her for a little bit. So she asked me general questions about my job. She asked me how to get into it, right? Do I like helping? Do I like doing this and coming out? And I told her I did, and I said it was I kind of fell into the job. I wasn't really looking for it, and it was an exciting opportunity at the time, and it was great. And I said the only downside is that I end up spending more money out of my own pocket trying to come up with activities or taking these kids to parks or to Chuck E. Cheese for my younger kids, and the pay wasn't that high, so I couldn't. I needed to get a second job. And somewhere along the line, I alluded to, I needed to get the second job because I needed to get out of the place that I was at currently. So she asked me, she was like, "Oh, if you don't mind me asking, what's it like? There's a sense of urgency. Like, why do you have to get out?" I said, "Well, it's my dad drinks, and it's just not a good environment. It's a boarding house, and I think it's just time for me to go out on my own. I don't really want to be around that, and it's arguments happen. It's just not a good situation for me." And she asked me, "Oh, has he ever been clean?" I'm going to pause here for a second. This is prior to me working in any field, right? With any type, I didn't know any of the jargon that had to do with any of the addiction stuff. So when she said she was clean, I thought she meant does he take showers and stuff like that, right? So I remember thinking that's an odd question. So I think she noticed the confusion on my face, and she was like, "Has he ever been in recovery, or has he ever not drank or done drugs or anything like that?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." And she said, "Okay, because I have 18 years sober. I used to do drugs and I used to drink, and I'm sober now." And I remember asking her how she did that, if she didn't mind, and she shared her story with me. And along the lines of her story, She told me about the loss of her son, who she lost him due to gang violence. And elements of her story prompted me to share my experiences and things that I've been through and my background. And at the end of the conversation, and it never felt pressured, this conversation, but at the end of the conversation, she asked me if I had ever thought about working in treatment, if I have ever thought about becoming a counselor or even just working in the mental health field. And I answered her honestly. I said, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like I know my dad drinks. It's the extent of what I know about the field. And she said, yeah, so look, I know you said you're looking for a second job. It's totally up to you, but I know this place, they are hiring for CITs, which are counselors in training. I used to work there as a supervisor. I can drop your name. And if it's something you want to look into, it's there for you. So I said, yeah, that'd be great. Fast forward a couple of weeks, I get a call, I do the interview, and on goes the story of how, throughout that, I learned, I developed in that field. I became a counselor. I became rooted in the substance abuse field, and it led me here to now working with the council and being able to give this hopefully great webinar. So it's the power of the conversation that I feel can alter lives. And I've rooted my therapy, I've rooted the way that I acted as a clinician around the belief that I'm having a conversation, with the intent and hope to help, but it's a conversation. And I never wanted it to feel pressured, and I never wanted it to feel like I was misleading or I was trying to impart something. And I firmly believe in that, which is why I wanted to make this my first webinar, and I wanted to speak about this, so passionately. But with any conversation, there are barriers, right? So we know that tough conversations, specifically around gambling, they're hard to have. It's hard to talk about something that's so general. And it's hard when we're afraid of what the blowback can be. So I'm going to unravel a few of the barriers, the most common barriers I think we see when it comes to these. So the first one, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to talk about this. Problem gambling it remains hidden for a reason. And it's because it is, a lot of people don't know how to engage in that type of conversation, whether there are warning signs or not. Like, a lot of people don't know how to just bring it up or how to talk about it, or even if it's something that they should be talking about. The next thing is that the information is sensitive, specifically with gambling. It's financial information that gets shared or financial information that gets discovered. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, in my household, finances they're uncomfortable to talk about. We don't want to talk about them, but we have to talk about them, right? It's important to talk about them. With the gambler, with the problem gambler, it's you can count it as a urine test, right? Similar for substance abuse. It's the only gauge that we have to know there's a true, one of the only gauges that we know there's a true problem with gambling. So when we start to uncover, even if you don't know if someone has an issue gambling, the information is still sensitive. So that becomes a barrier for us. There's potential for conflict. What if they don't like what I say? What if this starts a whole argument? What if they think I'm accusing them? What if they think that I'm making an issue out of something that shouldn't be an issue? So the potential for conflict often becomes enough for us to build that wall and say, it's okay. I'm just not gonna. I'll bring it up later, or I'll turn a blind eye to it because I don't want to ruin, or I'm afraid of what could happen. The next thing, and I highlighted this because I want to talk about it, but fear. What if they tell me that they are a problem gambler? What if they tell me the true extent of their addiction? What if they don't talk to me again? What if they run away? What if the what ifs become so much of a fear point that we rather just avoid it and keep things status quo? I rather just, okay, Someone else will deal with it. If it gets bad enough, I'm sure he'll reach out or she'll reach out for help. And that fear becomes the stopping point for a lot of crucial conversations that need to happen before it escalates or before the potential of escalating happens. And the next thing is that there's not enough knowledge. Gambling, problem gambling is one of the most least discussed addictions around because we simply don't know that much about it, right? There's no federal oversight really. We don't know enough about the addiction. And I'm going to be honest with you, as a therapist for many years, right? If you talk to me about substance abuse, I was right there with you. I got you. I can talk about loci. I can talk about treatment plans. I can talk about all these different things about when it comes to substance abuse. But when you started to talk about something else that wasn't within my wheelhouse, I got intimidated. And I would often be like, and if I'm being honest, my empathy level, right? It didn't mean I didn't care, but I didn't know how to help effectively. And I felt like I wasn't going to be a good valued resource. So that would often be a barrier for me to continue that conversation. Now, going back to our fear point, I want to give some tips and why and how we can kind of overcome or face that fear when it comes to having these conversations. And the first one is, it's not helpful for you to be over physically above somebody when trying to have these conversations. And I'm gonna extend that to being emotionally above somebody, right? We know that intimidation is a big factor when it comes to talking about these different things. And I'll use the example, my son, most of the conversations that we have are because he's jumping on the couch and he shouldn't be jumping on the couch, and he's playing with the dog and he's picking up the dog and he's running around and doing all these different things. He's 2, right? So he's doing that. So it's always like, Levi, stop. Okay. All right, Levi, keep going. Go watch Bluey, right? Like, whatever I can do to get him there. But when I really want him to hear me, like when it's something important that we need to talk about, I get down on his level, right? I kneel down in front of him, and I want him to hear me because I don't want it to be that he's always looking up. And if I'm saying something that's important, it may come across like I'm saying that I'm coming off angry, or I'm coming off as disappointed or whatever it is with him. So I try to get on his level physically and emotionally to make sure that that doesn't become a friction point, that he can actually hear what I'm saying. So when we're looking about having these tough conversations, don't be above them physically or emotionally. Just stay consistent, stay the same, and make sure that they're actually hearing the information that you're bringing. The next is speak directly to the other person and don't assume their intent. So the number one mistake that we make is that we assume that everybody who we have these conversations with gambling, that they're going to deny and they're going to run away and they're going to do all these different things. And we can almost pinpoint the next step that they're going to make, right? We try to assume that their intent or that they're not going to be honest with us or they're going to run away in some way. And it's a mistake because we don't know. That might be the conversation that they're looking to have with us. They might be waiting for us to share this information. So it's important that we don't assume their intent and that we don't take the power away from them for getting the help that or for asking for the help that they may be really needing. Be as clear as possible, right? So don't generalize things. You never come with the family. You're always watching the game or you're always on the game, and don't generalize the issues. Be specific. Last week, I asked you to come down and help me with the groceries, and you just stayed on the game. You ignored me. What's going on? You're getting hyperactive on that game, or last week you were watching the football game so intently that you missed out on family dinner. You weren't with us, and when the game went wrong, you went and you started drinking and you just shut yourself away for the night. So, like, what's happening? So, don't overgeneralize. Just use specific examples to kind of help to help them wrap their minds around it. Approach the conversation with openness and interest in problem solving rather than having to be right. I can't stress how important this is. Be open to the conversation. this webinar is about having the conversation, but it's not having the only conversation. It's not about this is the only time that you're going to talk about it, and you're going to get help, or you're going to do what I want you to do, and because I see that there's a problem, or I want you to react the way I want you to react, and that's it. Be open to solving a problem if there is one that exists, but more open to getting their information and seeing where they're at, meeting them at a level, at their level, and then hopefully building together up, rather than, using it as a point of, or as a threshold that if you're not going to listen to me, or if you're not going to accept what I'm telling you, then we're done. So approach the conversation with openness. Don't have too many expectations of how it's going to go. And remember that this is one of many conversations, hopefully. Keep to the topic. So don't use the approach of talking about problem gambling to then open up the door for every other problem that you notice in the house. Don't throw too much at one time or in one conversation point. Don't say that this is where we're going to talk about your smoking. This is where we're going to talk about drinking. We're going to talk about sex. Like, don't use that one platform that you've opened up. Just stay focused on that one topic at a time, and allow that to be a great point for you to keep the conversation going, or at least open up the conversation for many other conversations later, but not all at that same time. Okay, so just briefly, how do we build confidence, right? So going back to not enough knowledge out there, read. Right, Google, right? How do you know the signs of problem gambling, or what are the statistics around gambling? Read as much as you can on the council website. We have a ton of information that we're able to utilize, that we're able to bring out, and please use it as a resource. Another thing that you can do, especially now, and I do this all the time, listen to podcasts. We have great podcasts that are around that are all involved around gambling as a whole. One of the podcasts that I use specifically that I listen to is All In Podcast, that does talk about gambling and problem gambling. There are other podcasts that have to do with cryptocurrencies and all the new things that are on the horizon that we mentioned before. Or tune into the webinars, tune into the council webinars that we have, and let that be another resource for you. Attend virtual or in-person GA or Gaminon meetings. Gaminon and GA are great resources. There are people who share stories. There are people who have a lot of experience, direct experience or, related experience to loved ones. It's a further step, but I encourage you to check it out and reach out to a peer specialist who can give you information on it. On the council website, we have updated lists, and we update them pretty frequently. So you can always look at that. And then finally, seek out professional help. Remember that gambling doesn't just affect the gambler. The families are affected as well. The families often, as with many other addictions, the families carry the burden, or carry much of the burden. So seek out professional help, either to get resources for yourself, or to get resources that you can take to the person in your life that you see that there might be an issue. But make sure that you do remember that that's an option for you. Okay, so why is it important to talk about this, right? We're talking about we're talking about all these different things, but why is it important to talk about? Well, I believe this number is low, but roughly 1% of the American adults have a severe gambling problem. That's 2.5 million. It's not going away. And like I said earlier, we're within the bubble. And as new things get introduced with e-gaming and with the cryptos and the metaverse and all these different things that are happening or on the horizon, it's only going to increase. And the target, or the people who are being affected by it, it's a younger audience. And I believe that we don't even know what's coming yet over the hill, because we're within that bubble point. So just remember that there's so many people that are affected by it now. There are no warning signs. So what's common with other addictions, right? We can see other telltale signs. Typically with a problem gambler, you're not going to see them staggering out somewhere. you're not going to see them nodding off. You're not going to see them falling, doing any of the traditional signs that we may notice with other addictions. So it's important to know that you may not physically see that there's a problem there. It doesn't mean that the problem doesn't exist. So having the conversation, even generally, is enough to be the opportunity to maybe if the problem does exist, that it can be talked about, because you may not notice anything. This is why my call to action for looking for more providers or trying to bring on more providers with the council is so important, is because there really aren't that many gambling specific treatment centers out there. Whether it's from private practitioners to big agencies, compared to many other addictions, there really aren't that many that are just gambling specific. So the importance of utilizing the 30-hour training course, the importance of getting the information if you are a provider, and learning about this track confidently is it's all the more important. So just another reason why we have to talk about it. Trends are pointing to younger people showing developing gambling addictions at much higher rates than before. This again points to the e-gaming. If you have children, and if they're on some of these, if they're playing games, not an invasion of privacy, but play a game with them one day, right? See if you notice any signs. A couple of weeks ago, we took my son to the arcade, and I think I talked about it at work, where I haven't been to an arcade in a long time, and I walked in and I felt like I was in a casino. I felt like the lights were everywhere. There was music blasting. It was, and more importantly, they had gambling specific things. My son, at 2 went over to the big lever that looked like a big slot machine. He just kept pulling it and pulling it and pulling it. So even things are being geared to a younger generation, because the older gamblers are aging out, or which brings us to our next rate. The suicide rate for problem gamblers is much higher than any other addiction. 1 out of 5 gamblers will attempt suicide in their lifetime. So to me, that's a scary statistic. I think it brings into light, I think that why the importance of having a conversation is because, suicide leaves us with so many questions. And if we could have a conversation that could potentially, influence help or influence the opportunity for help, then we should capitalize on that. When is the right time? Anytime. Use the ads. I always say, the best way to combat, we're never going to be able to get as much airtime as the big ads are out there that we see all the time, but use that as a natural time to talk about gambling. When you see a sports ad come on, just be like, oh, it's another sports ad, and then go into your open-ended questions or talk about it. And it's only going to get more. The sports ads, they've been increasing year after year, and I think it's just, it works for them, and obviously it's bringing in the revenue for them, so it's just going to keep happening. So that's one avenue that you can utilize. The other one is going to sports events, or when you're watching the game. Here's a fun game that I like to see, is especially for parents. See if you can have your kids or your teens see if they know what the logos are of different gambling sites. Right, bring them a DraftKings logo, bring them a Caesars logo, and see if they can identify where it comes from. And that should be enough for you to notice that they're paying attention. It's not that they aren't aware, is that they see it. So it doesn't mean that they have a problem, but it could be a natural time for you to be able to have that conversation. And when warning signs are present, even though there are little warning signs that talk to problem gambling, there may be some increase in drinking, money, right? Stealing, small petty crimes that happen with the purpose of trying to get finances. So anything that we see that could point to there might be a problem is a great time for you to start speaking about it. But in all, no time is the wrong time. So have a conversation, share about it, talk about it, speak about it as much as you can, and bring it out. Bring it out so that way it doesn't stay so hidden anymore. So briefly, know your role or know how to react during difficult conversations. This is something I just use. So I use the acronym CARE, which is create a safe environment, right? Don't make it a hostile environment. Make sure that you're making it safe enough for the person to be able to hear the information and on that level with them.
I know. Like the thing is that
Please mute if you're not already on mute. Thank you.
Ask questions, right? Showing genuine interest. The conversations don't have to start by talking about the heavy stuff about problem gambling. Talk about gambling as a whole. If there is someone who's gambling, ask them why it appeals to them. You know, how do you navigate around the odds, knowing that the odds are there? See if you can gain any useful information, but ask questions and show interest. Respond when appropriate. Don't use the conversation as your way to inject your narrative into their conversation and just wait for your turn to respond. Listen and then ask if it's okay for you to be able to say, can I talk on that? Right. One method I use in my house is when there's a problem, is do you want a distraction? Do you want a discussion? Or do you want a break? Right? Do you want to take a break for yourself? So it doesn't mean I'm going to go and, even the therapist and me, I'm not going to go and try to problem solve everything. It just means that there may be things to watch out for. So we're going to, I respond when it's appropriate and when it's asked for, so that way I'm not overstepping a boundary. Demonstrate and communicate empathy. You don't have to have a problem with gambling or a deep understanding of gambling to be able to relate to somebody who does. Practice empathy. Show interest and understand that it's not your struggle, but it may be theirs. And knowing that you're there for them, good, bad, or ugly, is probably the best ways that they can feel comforted. It's probably the best ways to ignite an honest conversation. So briefly, these are just some resources for you to be able to utilize. So of course, the council utilize this as a resource as much as possible. Like I said, we have a great team of prevention specialists who go out and they will go everywhere and give presentations to anybody. So please utilize us as that resource. You can utilize me after this webinar or anytime, whether from a provider aspect or if I could come in and give a presentation or do anything that you need. But the council is here for helping the problem gambler or helping those around them. So please utilize us as much as possible and whenever needed. And remember that outreach prevention services, they never come at a cost. So this is our calling. This is what we do, and we're happy to do it. Next thing on a bigger level, we have GA for NJ. We have the GA hotline. We have the 800 gambler helpline, so you can always use that. And we just want to make sure that you have that information as well. If anybody needs these specific resources, you can go onto the 800gambler.org website and they'll all be there posted for you. And just a couple more websites out there for you to be able to share about, for you to be able to look and gain more information. So I'm coming to my close, and I want to take a second to speak to whether you're on this call live or somebody who may be watching this webinar at a later date. If you are struggling with gambling or struggling with how to have the conversation that you need, and if you are looking at this webinar, looking at any resources and thinking about having the conversation, I want you to know that if no one's told you that they're proud of you, I am.
You had a question on some of the statistics, and that was your estimate of 1% or 2.5 million people may have a serious gambling problem, and the 1 in 5 suicide rate. So if you could address where you got those figures or where there were similar information available.
Yeah, so I got the 1% statistic. I got that from the National conference or national data collecting source for where we talk about gambling statistics. I can share, I can try to locate that. If that person wants to email me, I can share that information with you.
That came from a couple people, so yeah.
Okay, so I can share, I can find, I believe it's, I don't have it on with me, but I can share that information with you and put it out there. And then from the 1 out of 5, that came from the health statistics. Again, another national conference statistics source that I got. So I can also put that out there.
There was a question on if you know, or if there's places to find how big the metaverse might be and how it relates to gambling as well.
I don't know because it's so new. So the only statistic, or not statistic, but the only information I got was I just did a Google search about what the metaverse is. If you go on Facebook's their corporate page, I believe they have all the information about the metaverse and the specifics about what it is. But we don't have enough data about gambling because it hasn't been around that long yet. The only thing I saw is when I did a Google is that there is a casino present within the metaverse, and the hopes is they have other gambling attractions that are coming for it.
And the last question I have, there might be a new one now, so I'll look at it. But how often is problem gambling comorbid with substance use disorders?
So it's often, right? We know that there are pathways to it, right? I don't have the specific information about that, but we know that there are pathways. There are things that enhance the opportunity for substance abuse to be related to it. For example, even when we were back in the casino setting, we know that, you know, if as long as I gamble, I get drinks, and that could bring on a potential problem. We know that there are similarities in terms of the risk reward. So there's a big secondary addiction increase that happens after substance abuse, and after there's that initial recovery from substance abuse, we may find that gambling becomes that safe gate, right? I can, I won't do drugs, but I can gamble. I'll do that, and it's not seen as a problem in the same light. So, but the specific information, I think that there are pathways there, I know that there are pathways there, but it's something that still needs to be addressed and can be addressed in a co-occurring or in a treatment setting.
And most of the other notes I got are not questions; they're just compliments. So I guess I have to pass them on. So,
well, you should.
I should. I know I should, but someone asked, "Are there gender differences in the type of gambling that you see?"
So typically we see more males, but that doesn't mean that there aren't female gamblers, right? It again goes down to. Thank you, Miss Alice. Again, it goes down to what information we have, and because there's not a lot of information out there, we don't know what the split is. There is a great podcast, and I don't have the name of it right now, but it's about a woman's journey, and she's a therapist now, and she speaks specifically about the female gambling aspect, because that statistic is a lot smaller, that group, that classification. So, but typically we see it in men, usually college age to older, and then it just grows from there. Anything else?
Just a word about comorbidity with alcohol and drug populations. Way back when I used to administer the SOGs to patients or clients in our alcohol rehab at St. Clair's, there was at least a 25% comorbidity with people in treatment at that point.
Okay, yeah, so that again, there's just the information keeps rolling in. Thank you, Lenny, for that. But yeah, I think we have sure. Charles, do you want to share that now, or so you just sent me a message? Or do you want
Sorry,
to,
I can. I mean, unfortunately, they're not, the statistics that I might mention are not, ooh, am I, got an echo going?
A bit,
I'm
yeah.
I'm sorry about that. I've not had that in a while. I hope that's a little bit better.
Sounds good to me.
Anyway, they're not peer reviewed, but, you know, we have I'm sorry, I work for the Delaware Council on Gambling Problems. And we have a counselor who travels the state up and down and visits various drug and alcohol counseling agencies with the purpose of screening their clientele for coexisting gambling problems. And in rough statistics, he's finding over the past several years that approximately 25% of existing clients with a drug and alcohol problem are showing signs of moderate to severe gambling problems. And then another 24% have been affected by somebody else's gambling problem. So like a family member.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that as that information continues to build, it's just gonna, you know, we'll see more linkage, right? But yeah, I mean, it's, if you could, I'd love to get some more information with you about that.
Sure.
Thank you. So any other last minute things before we wrap up?
I put the schedule for the other part.
If I may, just I want to thank you, Michael. You did a great job. It seems I was reading the comments on the screen, and everybody obviously took the information. It was well received, and I believe this information is needed, Michael. If more people can have the conversation, you know what? More people can actually get the help that they need. So I appreciate you, and I'm very proud of what you did. You said this is your first webinar, but the fact is that you did great. But I appreciate the information, and I want to thank you. And I look forward to other webinars that you might come up with. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is my first webinar, so thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I just want to close with letting you know that we have many other webinars that are coming on the horizon. Remembering that March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month, so a lot of things are going to be brought out from the council, and I want to thank everybody for joining today, for signing on, for the comments, and for being able to share this with me. And again, please reach out to me if you have any questions, whether on the provider side or the prevention side. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. But I want to thank everybody again for attending, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.